I was standing at the park in Marie Curie Park is what it's called now. I put photos up the other day. I was sitting in one corner where there were some trees still, one stump still remained above. I think that that's where at some point some children used to play. I was looking at the black wrought iron fence, and I'm thinking to myself, one area is at street level, one area has a steep shelf, and then descent, and then the other street, which usually, and there's a black wrought iron fence. And I'm looking at the parcel of land, and it's in such an odd shape. And there's where the bathrooms are, looks like it could have been a receivatory, like for equine or city delivery services or something, station house, at one point before they built the middle school. And it's over by the old schoolhouse, which is where Nucci goes to school, where they have all the scaffolding right now, outside by the Escuela, by the squall where the storm was, before they, away from the poisonous Main Street. Now, if I remember correctly, at some point behind the rod, there were a bunch of different historical landmark changes in the area, but at one point there were houses built or constructed within those gate areas, and then it was knocked down, and then they put up a park there, like a bigger jungle gym. But that area was also, I think at one point it's where the Albanian, that's where that ties in, or something to do with home territory of where my family is related to by genetic look. It was the quartermaster, or the equine, something or other, within the city. It was somebody incredibly important, because the city ran, before the cars and the vehicles and all of that, they ran with horses. And the horses were for messenger service. I mean, like, they were the staple of the secure forces within the New York area, and definitely within the Queens area, and then with city involvement of some sort. So I was looking at that today, and I was thinking historically, like, what was it when I was there when I was little, which I was having a really hard time articulating over some of the seeds that I have, with being in the corner of the property, than with being at a area where there's houses, but yet there's a fence, and trying to logistically replot out how the events took place, because even that doesn't really work. And while I was there today, which is September 29th, 2021, in Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361, Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, there was a helicopter. Now, the normal local helicopters fly at I don't know the depth or the height, because I've never taken aviation formally in this time frame, and with their standards, but they fly at a regular height off the ground in this particular zone or area or district or whatever. Once they flew really close to the house, and I was like so happy, and that's how I could read the undercarriage of NYPD, and I was trying to take a photo of it so whoever was flying had his whatever, and that's the difference of what a police helicopter looks like, so I had a reference. But normally they fly at where the U.S. Coast Guard flew for comfortability. That's also how the Channel 7 flew that I could see, and the black, white, and red, which turns out that look is on a Chinook type structure out by the Caldor and Dixie fires out west by Gavin Newsom. I really think it's Newsom, Newsom, but I could be wrong. But it's something, it sounds that way, if the letters aren't just right. So that happened. And then, because he's allowed on the television for some reason, I have nothing to do with it, but they broadcast his structure of his face and his genealogy. And then today, though, high up in the clouds, whatever the lowest level of clouds are, I don't know if that's stratus, cumulus, and then there's, I think, the ionosphere. I have to think back to when Alex was the last one to go to school, so I think they taught him that. So I think it's is the stratosphere the lowest one? Anyway, whatever the lowest level of cloud is, that's how high the helicopter was flying today while I was in the park, which I thought was really interesting because I've never seen a helicopter fly that high before, that it could actually touch the clouds, or the lowest level of clouds. But I know that there's several levels of atmosphere and clouds and biblical programming and so on and so forth, involved in the pressure system, and how do bubbles form between different cloud systems at weather pattern. It's like a balloon that has whatever and invisibility and shield and whatnot. But I gotta think about this. So it was a really, really high helicopter today that flew while I was trying to figure out how in history this historic landmark was at urban legend, because I haven't heard any urban legend, and they have something called a historical society, but I don't know who those figures are. That I could probably pursue, but again, I don't know what questions to ask, and I don't know whose campaign they're going off of, or if their information's even correct, historically correct anymore, because it seems like, oh, and then today, that big red, it looks like a touring van for like a musical band or whatever. It's called Apex, APEX. I took a picture of the symbols that it was using. It's based out of Nassau County, in driving distance, which is Massapequa was the name of the town. There's a mall over that way. Sunrise Mall, I think is what they call it in that area for Simon property owners. Because I told the Colombian, not the one upstairs, but the Angel Valet guy at the Lazy Cow, I told him, I'm like, just so you know, I found out that there's a Russian, or at least he calls himself a Russian, that looks like he could be your doppelganger or twin, whatever. I mean, he's got the same symmetry as you, because the Angel Valet is Colombian. I said, and he holds his breath. They call him the Machine. I was like, and he goes really deep. I was like, but the hole that he dives into is in a place that the TV reference was Long Island, but it was in the Bahamas, like the Bimini, not in like the Nassau Island region, not like, and then that gets confusing with what I got going on here as like a turd that New York State shit out, like totally different area. My landmass actually looks like a cat turd or a fish, depending on how far up or down you go, off of whatever the United States of America is North Americaing itself on the Rapagal. It looks like it just, I don't know, had a little extra. So, big difference though from a different geographical area instead of archipelago. I'm just a lonely single island, with very little spots, but it's much northern. Anyway, but south of Newfoundland. So I'm thinking about this. Oh, so we have this big red van today, and I'm thinking to myself, I opened the door. I asked the police officer that I like. He was speaking to somebody. I didn't want to bother him, but the door was open, so I look in, and it looks very Gail King inside of this red Apex vehicle, and I'm like, oh God, it's an Apex Predator. I'm like, excuse me. I was like, I'm just curious. Are you guys just doing like COVID things? Because I mean, and then I'm thinking to myself, I don't have like a campaign list of what they're going off of for national security. And she's like, no, we're private. And I'm like, does that mean you report to CDC your results? And she's like, no, we're private. I'm like, right. So they're private research, private money, private funded. So they're just building defense for their illegal activity somewhere else in some private ethnical ring that they're calling everybody else racist, but they're getting away with like all this jack crap and unionized bullshit, and they're like hurtling through up and over and under all sorts of justice feats just to wipe the rest of us off the planet. So I'm like, right. I'm like, okay, so your privately funded research. I was like, so if I needed to tell you, would you take a report on, in this local area, my hair is falling out, indicative of radiological poisoning at some level? And she's like, no. I'm like, of course you won't. I'm like, right, okay, thanks. And I just walked away because it's against their policy. Because if they take that information and do something right for the public, then they got a problem with their legal defense fund on all of the cat's pajamas that they're filling up with all their people and not doing anything right and bullying and all sorts of other stuff while the rest of the country's like, I don't know what, sleeper selling? I'm not quite sure. It gets a little confusing because it's that Aladdin issue from Broadway again, creeping up in the worst areas possible. So I know that like when I was little, after school one day, my grandfather and I were walking, and somebody came up and started like getting like really angry in some other language that I did not know, but that was one of his secret home territory people. Apparently he was upset. He found out about the quartermaster and the horse thing being from the same home territory, and that he had been lied to when they had made some city decision in order to sell some property or knock over the houses. They didn't know until it was too late. And that seems to be an ongoing thematic in New York City, I'm just saying. So I put up the license plate from New York State that the vehicle's registered to and their contact information on social media because again, like I mean, they're misleading the public with their intent and whatnot, but yet they're operating here. And I said, how did you book this event, by the way? She said, oh, there's a community affairs officer for consumer affairs inside, and she's like, and I'm private, so I just booked it with them inside NYPD, the 111th precinct, by the way. I'm like, really? I mean, like, it's just unbelievable what's going on around here. I mean, whose hand do you hold? What kind of dance is this? This feels very not right. I'm just saying. I mean, you're getting poisoned by air, by land, by water, and everybody is like trying to hide and cover up stuff for other people and legal funds. And then you got like they're trying to shoot you with bioengineered products, and then they're changing the pressure, and oh, it's a real shit show. And I got cyanide poisoning, like hypoxia going on. That's usually why my lips are so, like now they look okay. Kind of. I mean, they're a little blue still, but I mean, it's hypoxic around here. It's hard to breathe, and it's hard to get pressure in your lungs. But I put it up on social media. I also mentioned a couple of people within the parks that I know, some moms, that the private funded research van was outside NYPD in case they wanted to go check it out, but it just didn't seem like it was appropriate for, they wouldn't collect the fact that we're having radiological poisoning and hair falling out. And they weren't reporting to CDC, which means there's no U.S. involvement. It seems like the private's going under a federal loophole of some sort. That gets confusing too. And I can't get straight answers from the locals. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. I'm in Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.